So welcome everybody. We are here just today to talk about how we are using Open Distro for Elasticsearch for developer analytics. That something could be an interesting new topic for you, and how we are using this open source project in our company. And I would like to start with this quote from Edward Deming about without data, you are just a person with an opinion. I'm not saying that having opinions is bad. What I'm saying is if you have data to found those opinions, I think the opinions are going to be stronger to defend, and I think it's going to be more interesting because it will help you to take decisions and all the stuff. So when we are talking about software development, I would say that software development analytics matters for many reasons. And actually, people always think about, okay, software development produces a lot of value in terms of the data they are using, about how people are using or producing the software that matters to you. But I think it's interesting to understand that when you are developing software, it's not only about writing code or doing commits. It's also about people just submitting issues, patches, conversation in mailing lists. And all that stuff is producing data that can be analyzed, and data that can produce value to understand how the process is going on. Of course, there are many people already talking about metrics when we are talking about software development, like the delivery metrics, the stability and the throughput. And those metrics matter, but what about the collaboration between the people that are in the teams you are having to develop software? And usually when we think about, okay, small companies doing software development, is usually just small teams just close together. Now we are all remote, and it's coming just the new normal thing. But it's also to understand, okay, when we are talking about hundreds of people collaborating to develop software, like open source software, for example, I think there are a lot of things that can be considered and analyzed about how that processes are going, like we were talking at the beginning. And of course, open source practices that we think, okay, hundreds of people collaborating remotely, this is happening all the days and has been happening for 25 years now, even more than 30 years, I would say. That's becoming also something that is important for internal development in companies. Like, I don't know if you have heard about this idea of inner source, that basically is applying open source methodologies inside the company. And again, it's not about just analyzing the number of commits of the releases you are doing, it's how collaboration is happening inside your company. So again, we need to analyze, we can provide value on that. We can analyze how that software is being developed. And of course, it's just not us in our company doing this and talking about this. There is this CHAOS community. For community, CHAOS stands for Community Health as Community Health Analyzing Open Source Software. Community Health Analytics for Open Source Software, sorry. And they are providing just description of metrics, and it's a bunch of people talking and discussing about, okay, what are the metrics that are saying to you, okay, when a project is healthy, how collaboration is going on, things like that. But also there is also software that is open source that can be used to analyze open source development. So because we think that open source should be analyzed using open source, just to be fair. And that's why we are contributing to CHAOS at some point. And one of the projects I would like to highlight from CHAOS is Grimoire Lab. It's basically an open source toolkit, so don't think about that. Grimoire Lab is a platform that does everything. Basically, it's a set of tools that we can run in a synchronous way, but also you can run each tool separately for different tasks. But the idea is, basically the goal is to have a toolkit that basically provides you automatic and incremental data gathering. So basically goes to any data source you might think about that is nowadays used for software development: GitHub, Git, GitLab, Gerrit, mailing lists, Discord forums, Slack channels, IRC, if there are people still using IRC, Telegram, things like that. And basically it's gathering that information automatically for you. Then once we have this data, it provides tools to curate the data. Things like, for example, okay, we need to merge the identity of the people across the different data sources. So basically you are JS Manrique in Git, but you are also JS Manrique at gmail.com in other toolkits. So basically how I can say all these people, all these identities are the same person. So basically I can profile me, but also the organization I'm working with. I can profile that organizations and the level of contributions or the level of collaboration they are having. And last but not least, I have this data, I have the curated data. I need to consume the data. And basically, Grimoire Lab provides you tools to, of course, to use the data in your Jupyter notebooks, but also to produce dashboards through, I will show that later, but through Kibana and stuff like that. So all that tools are covered by Grimoire Lab. So I invite you to try it. It's free open source software. It's free, first of all, and it's open source too. So I will suggest just go for it and try it. And this is basically the architecture of the platform. So basically it gathers data. They have a set of tools to gather that data. Then we have a storage of the data that we call raw data. So basically the data as it comes from the data source is stored, just for checking that the quality of the data and stuff like that. We are using Elasticsearch as database for that. And then there are some in parallel tools that are doing things like, okay, let's get the identities of the people, let's merge the identities, let's manage information like affiliation, country, gender, stuff like that in a private and secure way. And that's through Hotstart, that's the tool doing that. And with all that curation and enrichment data, what we produce is are new indexes that are stored again in Elasticsearch and then are consumed through analytics, people that can go and query the database and get the data to build whatever they want, but also we have things like predefined dashboards for Kibana to show the data in a specific way. Of course, everything is orchestrated by a solution we call Mordred. We are people that we love things about Harry Potter, ages and things like that. So we are always about Camelot and Harry Potter, thinking about names for that, but that's the explanation for the tools naming we are using. And then we come to Cauldron, and Cauldron.io is something we start thinking, like, I think it was some years ago, we start thinking, okay, all this stuff is basically you go there, you run some Docker. At the beginning, it was not even Docker, it was just some scripts you need to run manually. Now have some Docker, Ansible, and scripts, and many automation things for installing the thing. But still, you need to go there, download the thing, run it by yourself. You need some cloud infrastructure. Of course, it can run in AWS without any issue. But we were thinking, okay, why not providing some kind of interface, some kind of SaaS solution, and people can start playing with part of the tool, not the full toolkit, because some configuration or setup of certain tools can be complicated, but at least for the low level, I think it could be a good idea. So we developed it and we started working on Cauldron.io, I think it was 1 year ago, 2 years ago, and we presented it last year. Currently, Cauldron.io, I would say, is still alpha beta. It's still one of those versions, but the idea is to have some kind of SaaS solution, an open source SaaS solution, so you can go there and install even your own premises. There are people using on premises for their own stuff, but of course, it's a SaaS solution for software development, and especially for software development project managers that want to know things about the projects that matter to them, either because those are open source projects they are working on, or they are thinking about consuming, or whatever. So basically, they have this tool for doing that. And of course, it's built on top of Grimoire Lab again, to test new ideas of how to use this software. And I would like to show you how it looks like and how you can set up something so easily. So that's the demo time. Let's see if it works as expected. So let's go for it. Let's go. So here it is, Cauldron.io. This is the entry landing page, so you have some information. And we go to analyze a project to see how fast it can be. So it creates already all the infrastructure. We can add some data sources to analyze. So let's start by that. We are supporting GitHub, GitLab, Meetup, and Git as data sources. For GitHub, you can use owner, repository. So let's analyze Open Distro. Why not? Let's go for it. Just copy paste the URL. You can go there. We analyze commits, issues, and pull requests. Then we need some tokens to analyze and to access. So basically, this is going to use now my token because it's going to merge my account, but it can use yours. So we are not using anything beyond that. There we have some analysis I have been running. Let's move to the latest one. And it's running. So we have some data right there. Let me check. It's loading. So basically here you have a quick overview of some numbers, some metrics about the community, the number of commits, contributors, maintainers, information about the project, about the community, again about performance and stuff like that. For example, things that people usually think about, okay, how long does it take to close things? For all the repositories in your organization, for example, you can compare with other projects. That's one of the latest features we have. One of the things that I think all this information, again, is extracted from Elasticsearch, but we have more details, and this is the public dashboard in Kibana, again, using Open Distro. I don't remember exactly which version of Open Distro we are using, but we try to keep up to date to the current version of Open Distro, and then we have this public dashboard that you can share with other people. And of course, while they cannot save anything, they can run everything like a full-fledged Kibana, so they can build their own visualizations and stuff like that. But I think this is very interesting because it allows people to play with the data. And of course, if they want to run their own analysis, they can register into Cauldron, and again, they can run the analysis. One thing that's interesting is if someone has already gathered the data, if you request the same repository, the same data sources, that is not needed. And so why we are using Open Distro for Elasticsearch? And to be honest, when we started using Grimoire Lab, and still one of the latest versions of Grimoire Lab is still using Elasticsearch as provided by Elastic, the company, and the open source part of the project. That's the aim. And our goal was always to provide a 100% free open source software solution. And there were things that the community were asking for that they were not present in the open source solution from Elastic. And we were saying even to customers that, okay, you can go there and you can hire Elastic and get Elastic for that. That's fair. So no worry about that. But still the community was like, okay, why not having this also as community members? And we started developing things, and actually it was not our focus. And then I think it was some years ago when Open Distro was presented for us, okay, this is the light. This is what we need for Grimoire Lab. So we started testing it, and it's part of Cauldron as I said before, testing new ideas. And it adds features that were expected and we were wanted from the community for a long time. So basically people can go there and have tenants. They have things that I think the role-based access I think is key, because we want to provide things like, okay, I want to provide a public dashboard, but also I want to create my own dashboard for my own consumption. So basically I can run my own reporting system, my own analysis of the community. I can do it through Cauldron in the Kibana interface that I have. I don't need to change to another thing or connect things to Kibana or to Elasticsearch. Kibana is already providing that to me through this role-based access. We can anonymize data based on roles and stuff like that. So I think that's very cool because it's working as expected. And there are new features coming to Open Distro that I love it all, because there are things that has been requested by the community for a long time. One of them, of course, is alerting. People want to know, okay, I want to know when the time to close issues is beyond or higher than a certain amount of time. So I want to have an alert I want to have an alert when a certain new community member has joined the community and stuff like that. And then, of course, the other thing that people are waiting for is this idea of reporting, how I can provide automatic reports to the community to check some specific numbers that I have created for them. And again, this is something we know that is coming in the roadmap for Elasticsearch. So thank you very much to the team of Open Distro and all the community working in this awesome open source project. And I would like to show you how it looks like to have these two infrastructures. Like, okay, we have seen the public dashboard. Now we can go to the private dashboard, and then you can go and do whatever you want there. So let's look at another demo. Let's see if that works for you. And let's go. So in this demo, what we are running is basically to show you that we have a data workspace. We saw before the more details part, that was the public dashboard, but we have a private dashboard thanks to the role access. So basically each Cauldron user, for whatever analysis they define, they have their own data where they can create their own thing, they can explore the data, they can build their own visualization, they can save them to reuse them later, they can even use them in other dashboards they could be creating for other projects. And I think this is one of the most awesome features that is providing, and it's part of the work that the community of Open Distro has done to provide this setup. And of course, one of the things we would like is to have more of these features that are coming to the project also incorporated to Cauldron. Like, okay, these are some predefined dashboards and some that I have created for this project, but I can reuse from there. But things like SQL queries, reporting that I said before, and stuff like that, I think this is interesting because it allows you not to have a predefined dashboard, but to build whatever you want and to use the data for the things that matter to you. And I think that's the key point when we're talking about data, is how you use it to answer the questions that you already have. And that's it. Cut. That was it. That was all I want to present about how we are using Open Distro in this open source solution. So if you are interested in knowing more about that, just go to cauldron.io or check my email or connect me. I'm going to be around for a while. And of course, we are here in Vitergia to help you on that. Thank you very much.